The dawn of digital driving. Welcome back to the channel, Gearheads, where we rewind the clock to an era defined by ambition, excess, and an almost reckless desire to embrace the future. The 1980 seconds. This was the decade when the microchip left the computer lab and slammed headfirst into the automotive industry. It was a chaotic, captivating collision, forging a new frontier in cockpit design. For the first time, drivers weren't just operating a car, they were piloting a piece of science fiction. In the 1980 seconds, the battleground for automotive supremacy wasn't just horsepower or aerodynamic efficiency, it was the interior. Manufacturers, desperate to prove their technological prowess and appeal to a generation raised on arcade games, ditched familiar analog dials for screens, bars, lights, and even voices. These were not just dashboards, they were command centers, visual information theaters, and electronic voice alerts that often confused, occasionally malfunctioned, but always dared to be different. Today, we embark on a thrilling journey through automotive history to resurrect and celebrate the top 11 most audacious, unforgettable, and technologically groundbreaking dashboards produced for vehicles sold in the United States during the glorious, garish 80s. We're dissecting the very essence of 8-bit automotive ambition. Prepare to have your sensory inputs overloaded. We've completely reshuffled the deck from any list you might have seen, diving deeper into the history, the design philosophy, and the sheer nerve behind these creations. And trust me, some of these relics of digital wonder truly belong in a museum of future past failures and triumphs. Before we fire up the digital tachometer, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments, which 80 seconds high-tech car did you first drive? Let's jump into this neon-soaked time machine. The list. 11 cockpits of the future past. 1985 Subaru XT, the esoteric alien cockpit. We begin our countdown not with a domestic giant, but with a challenger from Japan that looked, drove, and felt like it had been dropped onto Earth from a low-budget sci-fi movie. The 1985 Subaru XT. Subaru was determined to shed its image as a producer of utilitarian, all-weather appliances. Their solution? Create a vehicle that was visually and functionally unlike anything else on the road. The exterior was a masterpiece of wedge design, boasting a ridiculously low 0.29 drag coefficient, pop-up headlights, and a truly aggressive stance. But the real theater began when you opened the door. The moment you slid into the driver's seat, you were confronted by an unapologetically unconventional environment. Forget ergonomic norms, this was pure design experimentation. The most immediate shock was the two-spoke, L-shaped steering wheel. This pistol grip design looked like something a fighter pilot might use, completely breaking from the traditional circular wheel. It wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it framed the eccentric instrument panel perfectly. Speaking of the instrument panel, the digital display itself was a maelstrom of geometric ambition. While a traditional digital speedometer and RPM counter sat neatly in the upper corners, the true marvel was the horizon-style tachometer and turbo gauge. This was a 3D, graphical representation that looked like a cityscape rising into view. Instead of a simple needle sweep, the bar graphs for RPM on the left and boost on the right on turbo models would visually shoot out from a central, static horizon line. The effect was absolute, mind-bending visual theater, a deliberate choice to make the act of acceleration a performance art. Adding to the complexity were the steering column-mounted control pods. These weren't stationary stock controls. These dedicated pods controlling everything from the headlamps and wipers to the climate control were physically attached to the steering column itself. This meant that as you adjusted the tilt of the steering wheel, the entire array of buttons and controls moved with you. This was an astonishing level of engineering commitment for what was, ultimately, a niche sporty coupe, all aimed at giving the driver the impression that they were strapping into an X-Wing, not a car. The XT, with its unique instrumentation and selectable four-wheel drive indicators, proved that high-tech in the 80 seconds was often synonymous with high-risk design. It was a beautiful, esoteric failure that remains a cult classic simply because of its sheer audacity. 1982 Lincoln Continental, the pioneer of the dark dash. Next, we look at a car that represented the ultimate attempt by Ford to drag its luxury division, Lincoln, into the modern age, the 1982 Lincoln Continental. Following the design cues of the 1980 Cadillac Seville with its controversial bustle-back trunk, the 82 Continental needed a revolutionary interior to back up its polarizing exterior. This car wasn't just high-tech, it was a philosophical statement about interior design, laying the groundwork for how future luxury cockpits would operate. The key innovation here was the concept of the dead dash, or the black panel. Before turning the key, the entire instrument panel, hooded beautifully under a large brow, was completely dark. A seamless, flat, black expanse. There were no gauges, no numbers, nothing. It was a digital tabula rasa. The moment the key was turned, the panel erupted into a cohesive, vibrant array of fluorescent green digital readouts. It was an effect that was genuinely startling and immensely luxurious for the time. This was a deliberate rejection of the busy, cluttered look of traditional analog gauges. Ford designers believed that information should only be presented when it was relevant. At the heart of the tech offering was a fully digital speedometer paired with a sophisticated, multifunction trip computer located just atop the center stack. This computer was far more advanced than many contemporaries, offering metrics like distance to destination, estimated time of arrival, and detailed fuel economy calculations. It transformed the dashboard from a mere display into an interactive data terminal. The placement of the electronic climate control, tucked somewhat inconveniently into the lower section of the dash, suggests a design belief that once the driver set their ideal temperature, they wouldn't need to touch it again. This emphasis on set it and forget it luxury was part of the Continental's identity. The 82 Continental's black panel when-off concept proved so impactful that its design ethos later influenced numerous other luxury cars, including the original Lexus LS400, which famously employed a similar principle of concealed instrumentation. The 1982 Continental's dash wasn't just cool, it was a seminal piece of luxury automotive design history. 1986 Buick Riviera, the curse of the CRT. Moving on, we come to a chapter in GM history that is both celebrated for its ambition and derided for its execution, the 1986 Buick Riviera. Buick had an impossible task: follow up the massive success of the 7985 Riviera on a dramatically downsized platform mandated by GM program planners. To convince buyers that their smaller, lighter Riviera was still a technological marvel, Buick went all in on electronics, resulting in a feature that instantly became the car's defining and often hated characteristic. This was the introduction of the infamous CRT Graphic Control Center, GCC. The GCC wasn't just a radio, it was a full, monochromatic cathode ray tube screen, mounted prominently in the center stack, a touchscreen ancestor 35 years ahead of its time. The system was designed to consolidate nearly all secondary controls into a single digital interface. From this screen, the driver managed the electronic climate control, the ETR, electronically tuned radio, the trip computer, and various vehicle diagnostics. On paper, it was the ultimate future cockpit. In reality, it was a nightmare of ergonomics. The screen was operated by surrounding chiclet-style buttons, small, flat, membrane switches that required the driver to precisely press them. Trying to adjust the volume or change the temperature while driving over a bumpy road required taking your eyes completely off the road for an extended period. Drivers lamented the loss of simple, tactile knobs and dials. This system was the antithesis of intuitive design, leading to immense frustration. The press dubbed it the Great Experiment, and buyer resistance was immediate and fierce. Despite the GCC, the rest of the interior was technically impressive, featuring a full digital dash with a digital speedometer, fuel gauge, and trip odometer, all framed by a unique, model-exclusive steering wheel. But the CRT defined the car. It was costly to produce, prone to reliability issues, and, worst of all, actively annoying to the consumer. The GCC ultimately proved that being first to market with revolutionary technology doesn't always translate into a sales victory. GM eventually phased it out after just a few model years, but the 1986 Riviera remains a fascinating, if cautionary, tale of digital overreach. 4. Chrysler's with electronic voice alert, EVA, your door is ajar. In the early 1982s, Lee Iacocca and Chrysler were mounting a miraculous comeback, largely fueled by the K-car platform. To shed the image of the company that had nearly folded, Chrysler needed to project an aura of advanced engineering. Their chosen method? Give the car a voice. Introduced in 1983 and available across a wide range of vehicles from the luxury Chrysler, New Yorker, and Fifth Avenue to the Dodge 600, the electronic voice alert EVA system was the ultimate passenger. EVA was an add-on to the already high-tech optional digital instrument cluster, which typically included a glowing electronic speedometer and a series of warning lights. But the EVA transcended simple lights and buzzers. It provided real-time vocal feedback on vehicle status using a limited vocabulary of about 24 synthesized phrases. The primary function was, of course, safety and diagnostics. EVA would alert the driver to low fuel, unbuckled seatbelts, or engine temperature issues. However, what EVA became famous for was its peculiar lexicon, most notably the phrase, "Your door is ajar." This linguistic choice, a formal and slightly antiquated term for open, quickly became a source of ridicule and annoyance. Drivers frequently complained that the constant, nagging voice was distracting and unnecessary, especially if they preferred to drive with the door slightly cracked. The pinnacle of the EVA experience was found in the New Yorker, where the digital instrumentation and sumptuous button-tufted velour seats created a strange dichotomy. High-tech sensory overload wrapped in old-school American luxury. The engineer's perspective, as relayed by former Chrysler executive Maximum Bob Lutz, confirmed the EVA's fate. It was an expensive option, adding hundreds of dollars to the car's price that delivered little tangible value and actively irritated the customer. Lutz famously argued that the money was better spent fixing core issues like noise, vibration, and harshness, NVH. The digital instruments and the talking car were consequently killed off by 1988, proving that sometimes the future is best heard silently. The EVA remains the gold standard for high-tech features that were simply too intrusive for the mainstream consumer. 5. 1986 Ford Taurus and Mercury Sable. Technology for the masses. While many of the entries on this list were niche luxury vehicles or sporty coupes, the 1986 Ford Taurus and its Mercury Sable counterpart cemented their place in history by bringing high technology to the American mainstream. This pair represented a seismic shift in Detroit design philosophy. When these cars debuted, they made the competition, primarily GM's and Chrysler's boxier midsizers, look instantly obsolete. Their aerodynamic, jelly bean shape was revolutionary. But just as important as the exterior shape was, the commitment to making a high-tech interior available to the average family buyer. The standard Taurus came with conventional analog gauges, but the true innovation lay in the optional electronic instrument cluster, which Ford marketed as the Taurus Command Center. This cluster replaced the traditional gauge array with a suite of glowing, easy-to-read digital instruments. A digital speedometer, a digital RPM gauge, unusual for a family sedan, and comprehensive readouts for automatic climate control, time, and radio functions. Off to the left, a dedicated diagnostic center provided simple status checks, a precursor to the modern warning message system. Crucially, the Taurus and Sable struck a smart balance. While the core driving instruments, speed and RPM were digital, Ford wisely retained analog readouts for the fuel and temperature gauges. This mixed display provided a comforting familiarity while still delivering the futuristic digital aesthetic buyers craved. It was a bridge between the analog past and the digital future. The Taurus Command Center wasn't a complex, hard-to-use CRT system. It was cleanly integrated, highly legible, and provided the driver with a palpable sense of being in a state-of-the-art vehicle. This was technology democratized. The car's phenomenal sales success and critical acclaim proved that American buyers were ready for digital driving, provided the technology was accessible and non-intrusive. The Taurus didn't just redesign the midsize sedan, it redefined the expectations of what a high-volume, mainstream car could be, both inside and out. 6. 1981 Imperial by Chrysler. EFI and the Digital Dream. Returning briefly to the bustle-back era, we must acknowledge the 1981 Imperial. This was Chrysler's attempt to counter the Seville's high-end style with a Mopar twist, and it included technology that was both visionary and, frankly, disastrous. On the mechanical side, the Imperial was saddled with a highly problematic rush-to-market electronic fuel injection (EFI) system. This under-the-hood complexity often led to reliability issues that undermined the car's luxury mission, forcing many owners to accept a dealer-installed carburetor conversion, a sign of the era's difficult technological growing pains. Note the asterisks in the odometer often seen on these cars, signifying a cluster replacement, a common outcome of these early electronic woes. Inside, however, the digital experience was far more successful, at least from an aesthetic standpoint. The Imperial boasted a clean, integrated high-tech digital instrument cluster. The driver was presented with a digital speedometer, odometer, and clock, all glowing brightly. Adding another layer of sophistication was a trip computer controlled by a row of dedicated buttons positioned prominently above the center console. This allowed the driver to actively monitor metrics like distance and fuel consumption, a true novelty for Mopar in the early 80 seconds. Below the cluster sat a sophisticated, fully electronic radio that was praised for its audio quality. The entire package worked together to give the driver a sense of sitting in an exclusive, technologically advanced machine. While the Imperial ultimately failed in the marketplace due to mechanical flaws and its niche styling, its digital cockpit was an important early step for Chrysler, showing a clear, if troubled, commitment to electronic instrumentation that would later manifest in the EVA system and K-car derivatives. 1984 Nissan 300ZX, the rising bar, and the talking phonograph. When Nissan, then Datsun, launched the third generation of their Z car, the 1984 300ZX, they didn't just redesign the car, they launched a technological assault aimed directly at the driver's senses. This was high-tech with flair, a perfect blend of performance, ambition, and digital flash. The interior was a celebration of 8-bit graphics and sensory feedback. Behind the two-spoke wheel sat a wildly imaginative digital cluster that included digital readouts for speed, fuel, temperature, and oil pressure. The centerpiece, however, was the rising bar RPM tachometer. Unlike simple vertical or horizontal digital bars, the 300ZX's tachometer was a semicircular display that would visually rise like a fountain or a graphic equalizer as the engine RPMs climbed. It was an abstract, kinetic display of power that was pure visual theater, complementing the Z-Car's sports mission perfectly. This artistic approach to displaying engine speed made the 300ZX's dash instantly iconic and unlike any other performance car of the era. Adding to the Z's technological showcase was Nissan's own voice alert system. But Nissan's approach was utterly unique and wonderfully eccentric. Instead of using a synthesized voice like Chrysler's EVA, the 300ZX used a microphonograph, a literal miniature record player hidden in the dash to play back recorded female voices for warnings. When a door was ajar or fuel was low, a tiny record would spin up and the driver would hear a human voice. This archaic yet futuristic method of delivering alerts gave the Nissan a distinct, warm, and highly memorable auditory signature, distinguishing it from the robotic, often tinny sound of synthesized systems. The 300ZX's dash was a confident, maximalist statement, a cockpit designed not just to inform, but to thrill and entertain. It stands as a pinnacle of Japanese digital design philosophy from the decade. 1983-88 Pontiac 6000 STE, the night vision cockpit. The Pontiac 6000 was GM's version of the humble A platform alongside the Celebrity, Cutlass, Sierra, and Century. To create the performance flagship, Pontiac introduced the 6000 STE Special Touring Edition in 1983, proving that a family sedan platform could be transformed into a European-inspired sport machine. This mission extended deep into the interior. Initially, the STE debuted with a rather advanced analog cluster, but the real high-tech experience arrived in 1984 with the optional digital instrument cluster. This setup featured a slick, horizontal rising bar RPM gauge, a clean, sweet-looking electronic bar that provided an immediate visual cue for the engine's work. But the 6000 STE's ultimate claim to fame was its pioneering use of steering wheel controls. The steering wheel was festooned with a complex array of buttons, a veritable pilot's console that gave the driver command over the radio, cruise control, and often the trip computer, all without removing their hands from the wheel. This design element may be commonplace today, but its sophisticated implementation in a domestic sedan was groundbreaking and likely the first of its kind in a high-volume American car. The true magic, however, was revealed after sundown. Pontiac was famous for its distinctive lighting, and the 6000 STE's digital dash was a symphony of color. The combination of Pontiac orange accents and crisp green lighting for the digital displays created an intensely evocative ambiance. The whole assembly truly looked like the instrument panel of a commercial airplane, making the driver feel less like a commuter and more like a pilot. It was a perfect blend of digital technology and performance-oriented aesthetics, delivering on the promise of a high-tech touring experience. 9. 1988 Lincoln Continental. Digital luxury refined. The 1988 Lincoln Continental was the highly anticipated successor to the bustleback model, now riding on the technologically excellent front-wheel drive platform shared with the Taurus, Sable. Ford correctly surmised that the luxury buyer demanded digital instrumentation, but with a level of refinement that surpassed the mass-market offerings. The 88 Continental's interior was an interesting juxtaposition. The tactile comfort of old-school velour seats met cutting-edge electronic controls. The dash featured a full, bright electronic instrument cluster that included a digital speedometer and odometer. The system's brain was a dedicated message center that integrated a trip computer, providing data on fuel economy and diagnostics. Crucially, the fuel and temperature gauges were also fully electronic, completing the digital transformation. A helpful design feature allowed the driver to toggle a multifunction gauge to display oil pressure, battery voltage, or engine temperature with a single button press. Beyond the main cluster, the Continental showcased its luxury pedigree in the minor controls. Take the door panel. In addition to power window and mirror controls, the Seat position controls were molded into the shape of the seat itself, similar to the intuitive designs popularized by Mercedes-Benz. Furthermore, the inclusion of a memory seat function underscored the vehicle's commitment to personalized, high-end convenience, a true technological luxury at the time. The 1988 Continental successfully leveraged the lessons learned from the earlier 82 model and the mass-market Taurus. It proved that high technology could be smoothly integrated into a luxury environment, offering a comprehensive, information-rich experience without the irritating flaws of some of its contemporaries. The result was a sales resurgence, demonstrating that a well-executed digital cockpit was a powerful motivator for luxury buyers. 10. 1989 Oldsmobile Toronado Trofeo, the Visual Information Center. At number 2, we revisit the GM front-wheel drive luxury coupes, specifically the platform mate to the ill-fated Riviera, the 1989 Oldsmobile Toronado Trofeo. While the 86 Riviera was hampered by the CRT's limitations, Oldsmobile learned from its siblings' mistakes, refining the technology into a far more usable package. The Trofeo trim, introduced in 1987, was always intended to be the ultimate high-tech, sporty luxury version of the Toronado. By 1989, it was equipped with the Visual Information Center, VIC, Oldsmobile's answer to the Graphic Control Center. The V, like the GCC, was a CRT-based system that centralized control over the radio, climate, and diagnostics, including an early oil life monitor and a headlamp monitor. Where Oldsmobile got it right and Buick failed was in prioritizing user experience. Olds strategically placed redundant physical controls, knobs and buttons to the left of the VIC screen for the most frequently used functions, such as volume and climate temperature. This crucial design decision acknowledged that drivers often need to perform simple tasks tactilely without staring at a screen. The rest of the dash was equally captivating, featuring the high-tech digital cluster that had been a Trofeo signature since 1987, including a digital speedo and the cool, graphic-driven sliding bar RPM gauge. The 89 Trofeo dash remains a perfect example of rapid technological iteration in the 80s. While the car suffered from the same downsize for 1986 platform problems as the Riviera, its interior showcased a GM division adapting a revolutionary but flawed technology into a surprisingly functional, luxurious, and visually impressive command center. 11. 1984 Chevrolet Camaro Berlinetta, the swivel pod sensation. For our final, highly debatable spot, we turn to the domestic performance machine that decided luxury was its new mission, the 1984 Chevrolet Camaro Berlinetta. Intended as the luxurious alternative to the Z28, the Berlinetta had a specific mission to attract buyers looking for high-tech comfort rather than raw speed. In 1984, Chevrolet delivered an interior that was exclusively Berlinetta and remains one of the funkiest automotive cockpits ever conceived. The entire dash was redesigned around a philosophy of modularity and digital immersion. The driver was surrounded by control pods mounted on either side of the cluster, managing primary functions like wipers, lights, and HVAC. The main gauge cluster was fully digital, featuring a digital speedometer and a distinct vertical bar graph RPM gauge that provided a dynamic visual as the engine revved up. The centerpiece of this automotive fever dream was the swivel pod radio. This unique unit housed the electronic radio and clock on the top, with the cassette player below. The entire assembly was mounted on a pivot, allowing the driver to physically swivel the pod toward them for better access and viewing. It was a brilliant, interactive concept, though critics noted it often chattered or squeaked when driving over rough pavement. Further unique touches included a swivel map light, a map pocket integrated into the overhead console, and a quirky thumbwheel date calendar reminder, all details designed to make the Berlinetta feel like a personalized, high-tech haven. The Berlinetta's dash, with its pods, vertical bars, and swivel radio, was a monument to 80 seconds design, excess, and a bold attempt to redefine luxury muscle. It was an interior that truly took risks, providing a dense, information-rich environment that delighted some and bewildered others. It stands as an unforgettable high-tech outlier in the history of the F-body, the legacy of digital ambition. And now, we turn the final decision over to you, the community. We want to hear your stories. Did you or a family member own one of these technological marvels? Did your Chrysler constantly tell you that the door was, in fact, ajar? Did the rotating compartment in your Camaro Berlinetta entertain you or just creak? Hit the comment section now and share your memories or personal experiences with any car on this list. Your stories are what truly bring this automotive history to life and help build the most informed and passionate community on the internet. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the most audacious interiors of the 80 seconds, do us a huge favor. Click like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure through automotive history. Thank you so much for watching and for helping us keep the history of high-tech heroes alive. Drive safely, and we'll see you in the next video.